when I was in ninth grade. I actually got social media behind my parents' back, and it led me to want to kill myself because I felt so lonely. I didn't really trust in God, or I wasn't a practicing Catholic, but my mom always told me that she had a gut feeling that something was going on during that time.
This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
The internet and social media, I think it's exacerbating the problems that we're seeing amongst our kids. And just think about it for a minute. You know, in today's digital age, right? What do we have? I was watching a YouTube video last night. Actually, my son was over. He put YouTube up on the TV, and it looked at the things. If you grew up in the 70s, let's say, or even the 80s, you know, your kids today could not even understand half the things that maybe you went through. You know, television at that time had 3 channels, right? And you had to get up off the couch to change those channels. You know, people would drive in cars without seatbelts. I mean, they went through this whole litany of things. They talked about everything from the tabs that are on soda cans to things that have radically changed with communication today, like these cell phones. Your phone in your home, you know, you didn't know who was calling you. It was screwed to the wall, right? Ma Bell had the phone, and somebody called, everybody in the family who knew was calling you. But in today's digital age, we've got a whole new reality, a whole new universe, something called social media that's become an integral part of our daily lives. And beneath the surface of what we're seeing is something darker. And I don't want to bum you out here, but we're seeing the impact on mental health. It's something I just want to caution you about. If you've got kids, you know, if you've got anxiety or depression, social media platforms do a couple interesting things if you sit back and look at them. They are designed to create an environment where you are constantly connected, right? Where you've got interaction. And that's great because it fosters this sense of community. You know, you have this sense of belonging. How often do you go to your Facebook page or your Twitter feed, your X feed, your Instagram? You know, how often are you checking those things? It also has the potential for very negative psychological outcomes. There's been a number of studies that have been done, studies that show a correlation between heavy social media use and increased levels of anxiety and depression. So if you're wondering why your kid's depressed, or why maybe somebody you love is, a sibling or your spouse, you know, I think this is especially damaging for young adults. One of the key factors linking social media to anxiety and depression is this culture of comparison that we have. You know, I know some people love Facebook, but you ever see people telling you about how depressed they are on Facebook? How terrible their vacation was? You know, do you ever see the dark side of somebody's reality? No. Your kid often is comparing themselves, maybe you are, to the idealized version of what people are presenting online. And what's that do? It makes you feel inadequate, right? It leaves these feelings of low self-esteem and this pressure to maintain a certain image, right? We have this phenomenon called FOMO, the fear of missing out. And you got to keep checking because it can trigger anxiety. You don't want to be left out. There was a study done at the University of Pennsylvania, and they found that a significant decrease in loneliness and depression amongst participants was found when they limited social media usage. You feeling lonely? You feeling depressed? Put the cell phone away, right? Get off the tablet. Get off the computer. I think that study is very telling. It suggests that high engagements in these platforms can exacerbate feelings of isolation and sadness. So the solution might be pretty simple. You know, I don't know. I was lucky when my kids were being raised. Cell phones were really just coming out at that point in time. I mean, when kids were in high school, we allowed them to have cell phones. But today, there are many computers that are in the hands of kids. And I know parents are worried about the things that they're saying. Was it Father Rocky, Maggie, that said to us the other day that there was an 8-year-old that committed suicide? And he asked us to, not an 8, you're an 8th grader. You weren't up there, were you? We prayed the Angelus. We pray the Angelus every day as a network. And Father Rocky at the end of it said something very depressing. He said, "Can you please pray for an 8th grade student that somebody came up and asked them to pray for? They had committed suicide. They took their own life." But again, it goes back to this comparison. It goes back to this FOMO that so many people have. The loneliness. They do something, I think, to the neural pathways. They do something to the brain in a way that our creating this, exacerbating this this level of anxiety that we're seeing in the culture. The most alarming impact of social media, I think, is its association with suicidal thoughts and behaviors, like an eighth grader. Have you ever heard of an eighth grader it's taking their life by suicide? I mean, not when I was growing up. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, was reporting a rise in suicide rates amongst teenagers. And it's coinciding, they say, with social media usage. So maybe you're getting that cell phone for Christmas for somebody, or getting them the tablet, or, just be on guard. What can you do, right? What can you do? How can you limit this? Couple things, and I'll just give you some parental advice here. What's life like without the internet? One of the reasons I was going to talk about this topic today, and I thought, can you imagine what life was like before the internet? That was one of these things in the 70s. The internet really didn't come into mainstream until like the late 80s, early 90s. Do you remember, if you grew up in the 70s, if you were around then, what was it like before the internet, right? Before you had Wi-Fi in your house? You remember dial-up, right? Before you had 500 channels on your TV, you only had 3 channels. Do you remember what life was like? What do you think life would be like if there was no internet? Now, I love it. I depend on it. I use it all the time, right? I get my emails and I'm able to read my news feeds, and, it supports us here in the show and the way we communicate. I mean, I love the internet. It's a great blessing. But what would it be like if we got rid of it? A couple things you can do. I don't think we're ever going to see the end of that age. One, set time limits. All right? Limit yourself. And I'm not saying just your kids. I mean, you yourself. Limit how much social media usage you use. And watch how your own anxiety, your own levels of depression decrease, right? Track your screen time. When you lose weight, they often say track what you eat, right? Watch your calories or count your points or whatever plan you're on. Set your screen limits. Take a look in your phones. It'll actually tell you how much time you spend on your phone, every day or at the end of the week or the month. You can find that located in settings of your phone. I'm only going to go on this, 3 times a day, or I'm going to limit myself to X amount of times. Curate your feed. That's another really good one. Follow accounts that uplift you, right? That inspire you, that don't depress you, where there's not division, where there's not argumentation, that don't make you feel miserable, right? That don't put you in this comparison state. And then engage mindfully. Be conscious of why you're using social media. I mean, why are you on it? Why are you chirping on Facebook, right? Or Twitter, or whatever it may be. Don't follow those that trigger those negative emotions. There's some simple things we can do, right? And then the other thing is, practice compassion. Another word for compassion, I think, is mercy. Remember that what you do on social media is also seen by others. It's often curated, and it's also a highlight reel of who you are. Somebody wants to go through your feed. Be a person that shows mercy and love and charity and brings goodness and truth and beauty to the internet, And I think you'll be surprised at not only how you feel, but how you affect others. So bottom line here is this. If you're going to use social media, use it responsibly. I think it'd be a very valuable tool in staying connected and informed. I think it's essential, though, to be aware of the negative impacts it has on you, especially your kids, and maybe put it into practice. This Advent's a good time to do that. Those limits, or seek those genuine connections, that go beyond the digital realm. Think about what life would be like without the internet. You might be healthier, right? You might be more grounded. You might be better off as a result of it. Grace has been waiting. She's in Southern California, wants to join the conversation. She's got a comment.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I wanted to share my story briefly on when I was in 9th grade. I actually got social media behind my parents' back, and I used it every day because I had a fear of, FOMO, fear of missing out. And it led me to want to kill myself because I felt so lonely. And at the time I didn't really trust in God, or I wasn't a practicing Catholic. But my mom always told me that she had a gut feeling that something was going on during that time. So when she found out that I had social media, she took me to confession, and I went in and I felt relieved. And after that, we started going to Mass again. Yeah. I didn't have my phone for about 3 years, and that was the most freeing experience of my entire life, even though as a 16-year-old, I hated her for it, but it was so freeing.
Yeah.
And when we started going to Mass as a family, again, people started telling me that I'm such a big inspiration to them.
Yeah.
The first time that I felt like I was here on this earth for a reason. And now I'm 18 and I couldn't be better. So I just want to urge parents to if they have that gut feeling, to just trust in their intuition, because I feel that's God trying to tell them that something is wrong.
Hey, this episode of the Drew Mariani Show is on the Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free. It's updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers. So don't delay. Download the app today. Thanks for listening.